The history professor is in the house. He's Rick Thigpen, Senior Vice President, Corporate Citizenship at PSEG. Now, this is not a PSEG segment. This is all about history. Because Rick Thigpen, who joined us on our Drum Thwack, it's special, check that out, look at our website. He was the best on that. Rick starts saying, hey, the DOJ, Department of Justice, is all in the news right now. There's some history here. What happened June 22nd, 1870, with Ulysses S. Grant as president, about the DOJ, and why does it matter, Rick?
So it's a fascinating story, Steve, and I thought everybody should hear it because it's one of those examples where our country enforcing equality has really made itself better. And it's one of those lessons that I think is still relevant today. It's made itself better. All of us are proud of our Department of Justice. And you just cited the date. The date is 5 years after the end of the Civil War, when the President of the United States signed a bill to create the United States Department of Justice. It was done because, for a variety of reasons, after the Civil War, they had a flood of litigation. They tried to centralize and professionalize the practice of law in the government, but they also had a big challenge, and that was how to reconstruct America in a fashion that was safe. And to do that, our government decided that they had to enforce civil rights for African Americans. And the Justice Department had that task at its founding, and it's a very exciting story to listen to. Today, our Justice Department is a leader in the world. It's the largest law firm in the world, they say, but it was founded in 1870 in order to help bring civil rights to African Americans, and it was a national security issue.
Yeah, let's do this. By the way, someone might ask, how does Rick Thigpen know this stuff? I asked the same thing. He knew everything about Drum Thwack and who went through it. By the way, let folks know why you do know this stuff, because it is not directly connected to your job at PSEG. Go ahead.
It is not, Steve. That's fair. So I'm a history buff. I spend a lot of time studying history, and things like this. Black History Month is a special month for people like myself. And, you know, a lot of people talk about individuals who've accomplished great things, and there's a lot to talk about in Black History Month. And I'm trying to expand people's thinking about it, and that Black History Month is really American history, and that there are so many things tied into such, you know, to some of the great parts of our country. And the founding of the United States Department of Justice is one of those stories. And Steve, I want you to know that the House Judiciary Committee first introduced the bill as an inquiry into establishing a law department for the United States. And imagine if the United States Justice Department today was called the United States Law Department.
Rick, let me follow up with this. The KKK back in 1870, huge problem. Talk about white supremacy, white nationalism, extremist groups, still an issue. But back in 1870, the Department of Justice played a huge role prosecuting the KKK.
Yes, sir. In fact, it was central to the founding of the Justice Department. The KKK was founded after the Civil War, and a former Confederate general named Nathan Bedford Forrest was put in charge of it. Everybody knows that name from the movie Forrest Gump. That's who Forrest Gump was named after. But
wow, I did not know that. Go ahead.
How about that? Yes, and General Forrest was a famous cavalry commander in the Confederate Army. He was known for his effectiveness at killing people. And he led the KKK after the war. So what really happened was the Civil War ended, but a new guerrilla war started in the countryside in the South because Southerners were not prepared to return to the Union under the conditions that were being imposed on them. They did not accept equality. They did not accept civil rights for African Americans. They did not accept the 14th Amendment or giving African Americans the right to vote. And they did everything in their power to stop them. And the odd thing is, by trying so hard to stop them, the KKK and the violence that they inflicted, one of the great things that this country has benefited from was the creation of the Justice Department. Ulysses S. Grant decided that he did not want to only use military force to bring the South back into compliance with federal law. So they passed some enforcement acts, some criminal codes to make it possible for the federal government to enforce the 15th Amendment, the right to vote, which was at the core of the Ku Klux Klan's activity, keeping blacks from voting.
By the way, excuse me, Rick, as you're talking,
yes,
put
sir.
in perspective what Rick Thigpen is talking about today, as we talk about what happened in the 2020 presidential election and some questioning the validity of the votes of those who disproportionately are in urban areas who are African American. Pick up your point, Rick.
Well, that's a very hot potato there, Steve. But there is
Yeah, but
no
I mean,
doubt.
is the Department of Justice is as important as ever before, right?
The Department of Justice was important at the founding in 1870, and it continues to have enormous importance for this country and for the people in this country. And there is no doubt that today, with the insurrection that we saw in the Capitol, at the end of the day, it's going to be in the hands of the Department of Justice to sort through what happened, who, if anybody, is liable, and what is the appropriate punishment to be meted out to those people.
Rick, let me ask you this. And again, Rick and I don't talk politics per se, but rather policy, rather social justice issues. That's why when you see Confronting Racism on the screen, that's part of an ongoing series we've been doing for about a year now. Rick, let me ask you this. The Attorney General is the head of the Department of Justice?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. So Amos T. Ackerman was the 31st Attorney General of the United States. He was the only Southerner in President Grant's cabinet, but he was the first Attorney General to head the United States Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was not created when the Office of the Attorney General was created in the 1789 Judiciary Act. It wasn't created until 1870 when they created a Department of Justice. And they didn't name it the Law Department for reasons that were obvious at the time. Justice was the tool that was used to reconstruct America, to make it safe again, and to prevent the rebellion from coming back and haunting our country again.
I want to be clear. The Attorney General is not the lawyer of the president. The Attorney General is, in fact, the independent head of the independent Department of Justice.
Correct.
Do I have that right, Professor of History Rick Thigpen?
I believe the answer to that is yes. That's a little beyond our scope today, but the Attorney General is the top legal officer of the United States government, and the charge of the Justice Department is to conduct the legal affairs of the government of the United States. It is not the personal lawyer of the President of the United States.
Before I let you go, Rick,
giving the President advice.
Sorry, in about 30 seconds left. Let me ask you this, Rick. If this hadn't happened when it happened in 1870 with President Grant, 5 years after the end of the war, we don't know what American history would be like, correct? And there's no assumption that such a department would have been created later just because whatever.
Well, we certainly don't know. And as my mother would say to me, Steve, blessings often come in disguise. And that war was a brutal disguise. But two very important blessings came from that war. One is the 14th Amendment, the concept of equality in our Constitution, the greatest thing this country's ever done for itself. And number two is the United States Department of Justice, charged with enforcing the law and administering fair and impartial justice to all Americans. And that came about as a result of the war. And it's just an example of Black History Month, how Black History Month is really American history, and how some great things have happened for this country by embracing the challenges of equality. It's not always something to be feared, and it doesn't mean a lowering of standards. Some great American institutions have been created by this very controversial issue still today of equality.
And by the way, we're taping on February 16th. This will be seen later. It may be called Black History Month, but this is as important as ever, not just in terms of Black history itself or exclusively, as Rick said, American history. And let me also just remind folks that PSEG is a big supporter of public broadcasting, as well as the Caucus Educational Corporation. Rick, thank you for educating us, informing us, and helping us understand why the DOJ, Department of Justice, matters so much. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Steve.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much. No, we're not leaving. We'll be back after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, PNC, Grow Up Great, NJM Insurance Group, the New Jersey Education Association, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by NJ.com.
I'm Miles, and this is what I work for. To be my best for them and for me, in body and in mind. I need a health insurer that helps me get the care I need for both. That has mental health professionals that I can talk to when I need to. Because when I feel strong and secure, so do they. This is my life. And this is how Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey works for me.